Hey, and welcome to this tutorial on how to calibrate the 3-network model to temperature-dependent experimental data. So in this example, I have a lot of experimental data for a polymer called polyether ketone, PEEK. And I have all these files here at 23 degrees C, 100 degrees C, 150, and 200 degrees C. And I'm going to demonstrate how we can calibrate the temperature-dependent 3-network model to this data. So let's first take a look at the experimental data. Here is, let's open two of these files with a text editor first to see what's in them. It seems to be 3 columns: time, strain, and stress. And there is also a line here that indicates that this was at a certain temperature and this is a different temperature. So how would we work with this data set? Well, with a 3-network model, we can simply calibrate a model to all the data at once, because the 3-network model is a temperature-dependent material model. So what I mean by that is if we go to the polymerfem.com website and we search for 3-network model, and we can click on this first hit here, and it will give us the equations that describe the temperature dependence for this model. So I can scroll down very quickly. And we don't need to go through all the details of the model here, but there are 3 parallel networks in this model that describe the viscoplastic response of the material. And what we can see here is that there's 3 springs, hyperelastic springs, and these hyperelastic springs are given by this equation here. In this equation, the key feature is the theta parameter, which is the current temperature. So the modulus is this prefactor, will then be linearly dependent on the temperature, where theta is the temperature, theta 0 and theta hat are material parameters that we need to find through calibrations. If theta is equal to theta 0, then this factor becomes 1, as you can see, and if theta hat becomes really, really large compared to the denominator, then this also becomes equal to 1. So that's how the temperature is incorporated in this model. So there's one equation-based temperature dependence representation used here. The temperature dependence also plays into the viscoplastic flow rate in these 2 dashpots. So if we look at those equations down here, without going into all the details, we'll see that the rate of viscoplastic flow is proportional to the temperature theta raised to a power n. And n would then be a positive integer. The higher the temperature, the faster the flow rate would be. So that's how we would work with this material model. So let's see if we can demonstrate how we do that. Here's MCalibration. I'm going to have both of these windows side by side. I'm going to attempt to drag and drop the experimental data in. So I can just select all of these files at once, because they all contain some kind of data that we can use. I'm going to drag and drop them into the main window. It doesn't really matter where I drag them. And then the software will read in these files for us. And I'm going to try to maximize the window. It's a little hard to see because the legend is very large. There's so many data files. So I'm just going to hide the legend here. And here are all the stress strain data. I'm going to switch over to engineering stress strain because that's what the experimental data file contained. What do we see? Well, we see there's different groups of data here. It might be easier to look at this data if we color code it with respect to temperature. So I can do that very quickly. I was going to select all of these. I'm going to go to Edit, which gives me this special dialog box. Since I selected multiple load cases, I'm going to color code based on temperature, and I say OK. We'll see now that they're the blue, green, yellow, and red temperatures, and they are pretty consistent, and I think the modulus is continuous as you go from tension to compression. So the data looks pretty good, and this is what we want to calibrate the material model to. There's one additional thing I will do before I read in the material model here, and that is I want my material model to have a Poisson's ratio that is about 0.4 in this case. So I'm going to add a Poisson's ratio constraint. So Poisson's ratio 0.4 at this particular strain. I say OK. That gives the software something to work with when it comes to finding the bulk modulus of this material model. So Let's now select the 3-network model. The 3-network model is part of the PolyUMod library. And I'm just going to select the 3-network model, say OK. And here are the parameters that the software selects for us. It's trying to be a little smart. It looks at the experimental data that has been read in, and it selects parameters based on that. And it also selects which of these parameters it thinks you should search for. So theta hat we talked about earlier. We talked about the n parameter and the theta 0 parameters. They're all selected to be optimized or searched for if we want to. And then we are pretty much good to go. We can, before we start calibrating, we can run it once. This takes this initial guess of the parameters and evaluates that and sees, we can see if it's a good fit or if it looks like it's going to match data. So you can see the fitness is not very good. It's 57% error, but overall it's not all that bad. You see the blue. Let me see, I can zoom in a little bit. Maybe we can see that the trends are at least okay. The blue are here, the green and red. So this is the starting point. We can then calibrate the material model from this starting point if we like. So that would be run calibrate. And we can specify how many CPUs we want to use, how long we want the calibration to run. This is a pretty large data set. So to get a good fit here, in a case like this, I would run an extensive automatic method. And I would have an unlimited time. And if I get too bored or I don't feel like waiting, then I will stop it. But I will just let it run out. It will take a few hours, perhaps. I'm not so sure. And that's about it. So I'm going to start this. And we'll see what it looks like. It's starting with the automatic methods and evaluating different guesses. So to speed this up, I have already done this. So I will switch over to my saved solution, which is, of course, handy today. So I will open up my, I'm not going to save this one. I'm going to open up my already saved solution here. And you see it's the same amount of experimental data here. And I have the 3-network model. If I run it once, we'll see what the calibration looks like. The error is down to 15% or so, and I don't think I actually ran it all the way to the optimal solution. But it looks like a pretty decent calibration. To see a little bit better what's going on, you can turn on and off different load cases, because there's so much going on here. Instead, what I will do is to use the feature up in the right corner here, where you can drag this little indicator around, and they will select one load case at a time, so you can look at it. So it is all of them. This is the first one, and I'm going to swap through these to see that there's some error in this case, like the yield stress a little bit, the prediction is a little too low, but not too bad overall. So these are the compression results, and this is the Poisson's ratio case in the end. So that's really all you have to do. Once you calibrated this, you can export it to your favorite finite element software and use this as I have demonstrated in other videos. Well, thank you for watching, and let me know if you have any questions.